What if I told you that one of the most revolutionary novels ever written was published in 1847 by a woman who had to use a male pseudonym just to get it published? Today we're diving deep into Charlotte Bronte's masterpiece Jane Eyre, a book that didn't just break literary conventions but shattered them completely. This isn't your typical romance novel, and Jane Eyre certainly isn't your typical heroine. She's poor, plain and powerless in a world that values wealth, beauty and social status above all else. Yet she becomes one of literature's most compelling characters precisely because she refuses to be defined by society's limitations. Jane Eyre stands as one of the most influential works in English literature, published at a time when women writers face significant barriers to publication and recognition. Charlotte Brontë, writing under the pseudonym Currebell, created a narrative that challenged Victorian society's rigid class structures and gender expectations. The novel emerged during a period of social upheaval in England when industrialisation was reshaping society and questions about women's rights were beginning to surface more prominently in public discourse. What makes Jane Eyre extraordinary is its first-person narrative structure, which was revolutionary for its time. Through Jane's own voice, readers experience her thoughts, emotions and moral struggles directly. This intimate perspective allows Bronte to explore themes of independence, equality and personal integrity in ways that were unprecedented in Victorian literature. The novel's subtitle, an autobiography, reinforces this personal approach, making readers feel as though they're reading the genuine memoirs of a real woman rather than a fictional account. The book's impact extended far beyond literature. It sparked debates about women's roles in society, the nature of marriage, and social class distinctions. Critics were divided, with some praising its passionate intensity and others condemning it as coarse and improper. This controversy only heightened the novel's influence, establishing it as a work that couldn't be ignored. The character of Jane Eyre became a symbol of female independence and moral strength, inspiring generations of readers to question societal expectations and fight for their own dignity and self-worth. Jane Eyre follows the journey of its titular character, from childhood through adulthood, chronicling her transformation from a powerless orphan into a woman of remarkable strength and conviction. The story begins with young Jane living with her cruel aunt and cousins at Gateshead Hall, where she endures constant humiliation and abuse. Her fierce spirit and refusal to accept mistreatment eventually lead to her being sent away to Lowood School, a harsh boarding institution for poor girls. At Lowood, Jane encounters both cruelty and kindness, forming her first meaningful friendship with Helen Burns, a deeply religious girl who teaches Jane about forgiveness and inner strength. Despite the school's harsh conditions, Jane receives an education that will prove crucial to her future independence. She eventually becomes a teacher at Lowood, before seeking greater opportunities in the wider world. Jane's life takes a dramatic turn when she accepts a position as governess at Thornfield Hall, where she's hired to teach Adele, the ward of the mysterious Edward Rochester. Initially, Jane finds Rochester intimidating and difficult, but their relationship gradually develops from master and servant to intellectual equals who engage in passionate conversations about life, morality and human nature. Their growing love seems to transcend social boundaries, offering Jane the possibility of happiness she has never known. However, their wedding is dramatically interrupted by the revelation that Rochester is already married to Bertha Mason, a woman he keeps locked in Thornfield's attic due to her violent mental illness. Devastated but determined to maintain her moral integrity, Jane flees Thornfield despite Rochester's pleas for her to stay as his mistress. Her subsequent journey leads her to St. John Rivers and his sisters, who take her in when she's destitute. St. John, a cold but devoted clergyman, eventually proposes marriage and asks Jane to accompany him as a missionary to India. Though tempted by the opportunity to serve a noble cause, Jane realises this would mean sacrificing her true nature and the love she still feels for Rochester. Lowood School represents Jane's first encounter with the wider world beyond Gateshead, introducing her to both systematic cruelty and genuine compassion. Under the hypocritical leadership of Mr. Brocklehurst, the school subjects its students to harsh conditions while preaching Christian charity. Jane's friendship with Helen Burns becomes crucial to her development, as Helen's patient acceptance of suffering and deep religious faith provide a counterpoint to Jane's more rebellious nature. Helen's death from consumption serves as Jane's first major loss, but it also strengthens her resolve to create meaning from suffering and to value human connection above material comfort. Jane's arrival at Thornfield Hall marks the beginning of her adult life and her first taste of relative independence. Her position as governess places her in an ambiguous social position, neither servant nor family member, which mirrors her status throughout the novel as someone who doesn't fit neatly into Victorian society's categories. Her initial encounters with Rochester are marked by his disguises and tests, suggesting his awareness that Jane is no ordinary governess. Their relationship develops through intellectual sparring and shared experiences, including the mysterious fire in Rochester's bedroom that Jane extinguishes, saving his life and deepening their connection. The revelation of Rochester's wife represents the novel's central crisis, forcing Jane to choose between passion and principle. Bertha Mason's existence in the attic serves as a dark mirror to Jane's own situation, showing what happens when a woman's desires and needs are completely suppressed by social constraints. The dramatic interruption of Jane and Rochester's wedding ceremony, with the appearance of Bertha's brother and the lawyer, creates one of literature's most memorable scenes. Jane's decision to leave Thornfield, despite her love for Rochester, demonstrates her commitment to maintaining her integrity, even at enormous personal cost. Jane's time with the Rivers family introduces themes of religious duty versus personal fulfillment. St. John Rivers represents a different kind of passion than Rochester's, one driven by religious fervour rather than romantic love. His proposal to Jane and his request that she accompany him to India as a missionary wife present her with another test of her values. While she respects his dedication to his calling, Jane recognises that accepting his proposal would mean denying her true nature and the love she still feels for Rochester. The mysterious inheritance Jane receives from her Uncle John Eyre provides her with the financial independence she has always lacked, but more importantly, it reveals her familial connection to the Rivers family. This development allows Jane to help others for the first time in her life as she shares her inheritance with her new-found cousins. The inheritance also gives her the freedom to make choices based on her heart rather than economic necessity, setting up her eventual reunion with Rochester. The novel's climax occurs when Jane, now financially independent and emotionally mature, seeks out Rochester and discovers that Thornfield has burned down. Bertha's death in the fire and Rochester's injuries, including the loss of his sight and hand, create new circumstances for their relationship. Jane's return to Rochester is now as an equal, someone who chooses to be with him not from dependence but from genuine love and commitment. Their reunion represents the fulfillment of Jane's journey toward independence and self-realization. The conclusion shows Jane and Rochester building a life together based on mutual respect and genuine partnership. Rochester's physical limitations serve as a metaphor for the way love can transform and humble even the most powerful individuals. Jane's role as his companion and guide reverses their earlier dynamic, showing how their relationship has evolved into true equality. Their eventual marriage represents not just personal happiness, but the possibility of relationships that transcend traditional social boundaries. Personal integrity must never be compromised for convenience or social acceptance. Jane's refusal to become Rochester's mistress, despite her love for him and her difficult circumstances, demonstrates that maintaining one's moral principles requires courage and often involves significant sacrifice. This lesson resonates across time periods and cultures, reminding us that true self-respect comes from staying true to our values, even when doing so is difficult or costly. Independence and self-reliance are essential for personal fulfillment and healthy relationships. Throughout the novel, Jane's journey toward financial and emotional independence enables her to make choices based on her authentic desires rather than desperation or social pressure. Her story suggests that meaningful relationships can only exist between equals, and that dependence breeds resentment and imbalance. Education and knowledge provide pathways to freedom and self-improvement. Jane's education at Lowood, despite the school's harsh conditions, gives her the tools she needs to support herself and engage with the world as an intelligent, capable woman. The novel advocates for women's education as both a practical necessity and a means of personal empowerment. Social class and wealth should not determine human worth or potential. Jane's relationship with Rochester challenges Victorian society's rigid class distinctions, suggesting that intellectual and moral qualities matter more than birth or fortune. The novel critiques a social system that values external circumstances over internal character. True love requires mutual respect and intellectual compatibility. Jane and Rochester's relationship develops through conversation and shared experiences rather than mere physical attraction or social convenience. Their connection demonstrates that lasting love must be built on understanding, respect, and genuine partnership. Forgiveness and compassion are signs of strength, not weakness. Jane's eventual forgiveness of her Aunt Mrs. Reed and her compassionate treatment of those who have wronged her show emotional maturity and moral development. The novel suggests that holding on to anger and resentment ultimately harms the person who harbours these feelings. Religious faith should inspire love and service, not judgment and cruelty. Through characters like Helen Burns and St. John Rivers, the novel explores different approaches to Christianity, ultimately advocating for a faith that emphasises compassion and personal growth over rigid doctrine or self-righteousness. Women possess the same capacity for passion, intelligence and moral reasoning as men. Jane's character challenges Victorian assumptions about women's nature and capabilities, demonstrating that women can be both emotionally intense and rationally principled. Her story argues for women's right to pursue their own happiness and make their own choices. Personal growth often requires periods of solitude and reflection. Jane's journey includes several moments of isolation that allow her to understand herself better and clarify her values. These experiences suggest that self-knowledge is essential for making wise decisions and building meaningful relationships. Equality in relationships creates the foundation for lasting happiness. The novel's conclusion, where Jane and Rochester come together as equals, illustrates that healthy partnerships require both parties to respect each other's autonomy and contribute to the relationship's success. Their story demonstrates that love flourishes when it's based on choice rather than necessity. Jane Eyre remains as relevant today as it was when Charlotte Brontë first published it nearly 2 centuries ago. The novel's exploration of themes like personal integrity, independence and equality continues to resonate with readers who face their own struggles against social expectations and personal limitations. Jane's journey, from powerless orphan to confident woman, serves as inspiration for anyone seeking to define their own path in life. The book's enduring popularity stems from its honest portrayal of human nature and its refusal to offer easy answers to complex moral questions. Jane Eyre doesn't achieve happiness through luck or external rescue, but through her own determination to grow and remain true to her principles. Her story reminds us that personal fulfillment comes from within, and that authentic relationships require courage, honesty, and mutual respect. For modern readers, Jane Eyre offers both escape and enlightenment. While the Victorian setting may seem distant, the fundamental human experiences the novel explores, love, loss, moral struggle, and the search for belonging, remain universal. Bronte's masterpiece continues to inspire readers to question societal limitations, pursue their own independence, and never settle for less than they deserve in life and love.